lovers and love making.
Yeah.
How many of you, oh yeah. How many of you have watched these movies where there's a battle scene or some sort of chaos or apocalyptic level destruction going on, and there's these two lovers and they stop to kiss and make out in the middle of like God knows what all's going on. I mean, yeah, and sure, and yeah, right. Suddenly the bullets and the arrows and the bombs all don't affect them. It's like nobody realizes that these two lovers are there vulnerable and unprotected kissing, and like, yeah, that's an easy kill. Phones are a good example of how a lot of people multitask. You know, they're on their phones while somebody's talking to them. Yeah, I'm listening, but the other person that's talking doesn't feel heard.
Yeah. Feel disconnected.
Yeah, you can feel the energy and the disconnect. And
welcome to the video today. We are the Kaufmans, and our mission is
to give you the tools to foster the deep connection necessary either to get married or take your marriage to epic levels of connection.
Yes. So today we're going to talk about multitasking in marriage.
Multitasking has to do with doing two things at the same time. We can do it. We can multitask. And if you are a computer geek, you would know that a computer does multitasking, or so we think. It's actually what it's doing is it's switching between multiple tasks back and forth super, super fast. Although it doesn't have multiple processors all doing, you know, one processor doing this, one processor doing this. At least that's my understanding. It's one processor doing multiple things and it's switching back and forth between all of them. And the more things you have a computer multitask on, the more our brains are the same way. Computers are designed off the pattern of how our brain functions, if you really break it down in the world of science. So what does that look like in relationship building?
Yeah.
Phones are a good example of how a lot of people multitask. You know, they're on their phones while somebody's talking to them. Yeah, I'm listening, but the other person that's talking doesn't feel heard.
Yeah. Feel disconnected.
Yeah, you can feel the energy and the disconnect. And by the way, multitasking can even take place in your thoughts. You can be thinking about something else entirely different and not even listening. And like, what about married couples making love? You can tell if the other person isn't entirely 100% present, or maybe a distracting thought floated through their head. And that's the most enhanced environment that I can think of, where you really feel it, and where you like really have to focus and zero in on what you're doing and how to please and pleasure your spouse.
Yeah, it's important to also look into how multitasking can really affect your connection. And there are good multitasking things that it's okay to do that.
There's a time and a place for it.
Time and a place. So what you were saying is that there are sometimes it's really not working, and we need to look at that.
If you really, really boil it down to the science of the brain, and people who study concentration, focus, and flow state in your mind, they have discovered that when you multitask, even if you can, and even if you can do so skillfully, what happens is it's actually wiring and training and conditioning your brain to not be able to focus as well as it could when you actually do want to focus on one singular task without distractions. Like, for example, a common one, when you go to use the restroom, use just the restroom. Don't take your phone with you. Because as soon as you add tasks to something that's muscle memory, I get it that people want to be efficient. You know, if you're on the job and you got multiple muscle memory activities down, okay, for efficiency's sake, if you can do that, great. However, just be aware that if you want to enhance your focus, really get razor sharp, practice on everyday things in life, wherever possible, do just that thing. And don't do anything else. Focus on what you're doing, and you'll start conditioning and rewiring your brain to have more focus than you would if you're constantly multitasking. We live in a world where some people are going to say, it's impossible. I can't. I got 36 children, you know, or whatever. Well, I get it, but still, it still applies. Do what you can. If you go to somewhere and you don't need to take your phone with you to keep you occupied while you're doing that activity, leave the phone behind. Just start with simple stuff.
I love that. Yeah. We talked about that, how when you put the full focus and you are present on your spouse, you feel it. You feel like your cup is full. You feel so good. You are deeply connecting. And there are times when you're not, right? And like you said, your thoughts and phones and other things.
Mm-hmm.
So what are the things that we talked about could be, it's okay to multitask in the relationship,
absolutely,
in marriage?
Yes, very good. Shared activities. And that could be watching a movie together, watching a video together on your phone. However, it has its limitations on how much connection can take place over that. So if you're going to do screen time, obviously, ideally, you want to be doing it together, be looking at the same screen, doing the same thing. However, the most ideal and best form of connecting over multitasking is a shared physical activity, walking, swimming, something physical. To where you're connecting over a shared activity, doing the same thing together. That really builds connection. I understand a lot of us men, to sit across the table and just talk with our wife for an hour or two or hours on end.
It's not fun.
It gets painful after a while because men are designed to have some form of muscle activity involved when it requires long, intense levels of focus. So I always say, well, okay, if it's a deep topic and we really want to dive deep into what we're talking about and get focused, let's go on a walk. And then I can listen for as long as we're walking.
And women, listen, it's okay to do that. I know we love to sitting down over coffee and tea and talking and sharing, and we can go for hours, right?
So yeah, if I have a coffee, I can do that.
But then listen, expectations and expecting the same thing out of your husbands, it might not be helpful. We need to know what works for him, how he can be more focused on what we need to discuss and talk about. So when we're processing through things, we do go for a walk.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so how do we get more focus? Well, we can remove distractions. That's a good one. Do what you can there. However, just removing distractions alone doesn't really fix the problem that starts actually up in our head.
Yeah.
So what you really need to do is manage your focus and work on your focus. Because how many of you, if you've been super involved in a book, a video game or a movie, you could not be distracted from that. And there could have been all sorts of chaos going on around you. You're completely zoned in. Was it the removal of distractions that made you focus on that, or was it your interest therein?
Your focus.
And your focus. Yeah. So the level and intensity of your focus will determine how much you can function in the middle of a distracting environment. Yes, you want to remove distractions. So get it, but that's not where you start. That's where you end. You start with focus and then get distractions out of the way if necessary.
I love that. And we talked about this earlier too, is that scheduling your date nights is creating that space and time where you can talk about things, and maybe scheduling every day something in your calendar where you can create that connection when you have that time to talk and to discuss things. One thing Jesse mentioned this morning as we were getting ready, and he was making his coffee and then cleaning and washing the blender afterwards, and he said, it's interesting when we're multitasking and doing those things and another person comes in and wants to talk about something. It's like, feels like you're talking to another person's back, right? So it doesn't feel connected. And I feel like my voice started getting kind of struggling and feel like squeezed. And I'm like, I can't talk like this. I'm sorry.
Or if we talk to each other from separate rooms and without an intro, you're entering into that person's thoughts.
Yep. Their space in the way.
And their space with no warning. Yeah. And that's why sometimes we miss the line of, okay, what did she just say? Yeah. And I completely lost the context of what she said because I lost the first line because she said something while I was in a different room and I was completely in a different world.
Yeah.
Well, we discovered, okay, I'm actually working on this. If I want to say something to Irina and I'm in the kitchen, she's in the bathroom, I'm like, oh, wait, let's do this face to face, because if I say something now, she's completely somewhere else with her thoughts. And I'm going to enter into those thoughts, and you're probably going to go, huh?
Yeah, and we do that a lot, right? When we say something to another person, almost every single time, the next thing comes, huh? What did you say? Hey, are you talking to me?
Or I'm trying to connect the dots and catch up real quick on what she's trying to say.
So listen, of course, we're going to multitask in many areas in our lives and in our marriages and our relationships. But make sure you schedule those times in your day and in your week to sit down and connect, to go for a walk and connect, to go for a drive maybe and connect, right? To make love and connect.
Yeah.
And there's so many things that we can do.
And speaking of love, lovers, and love making, how many of you, oh yeah. How many of you have watched these movies where there's a battle scene or some sort of chaos or apocalyptic level destruction going on, and there's these two lovers and they stop to kiss and make out in the middle of like God knows what all's going on. I mean, right. Suddenly the bullets and the arrows and the bombs all don't affect them. It's like nobody realizes that these two lovers are there vulnerable and unprotected kissing, and like, that's an easy kill. Well, of course,
they become invisible.
They suddenly become invisible. Now we could say, oh, that's Hollywood, anything's possible in Hollywood. However, I just caught that there's something that we can get out of that, get a spiritual principle out of that. When we are in deep connection, undistracted, deeply focused connection, guess what? The chaos around us and the fears and the doubts and the unpaid bills or whatever it is that's stressing out fades. Yeah. It's like in that moment, everything else absorbed in that moment. Yes.
That is so beautiful.
So go for that deep connection, that focused connection. Yeah. And start exercising this muscle that starts in your head. And you'll be able to block out things when you need to get focused.
Yeah. And if you like this video, you can watch that video next, where we talk about how to create a deep connection really fast. So.
All right. I love it. I got to listen to this video myself a few times. I could take a few notes on myself.
It's good. All right, guys, we got to go. We'll see you next time.
Gotta go connect.